since December. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Since December of 2010, and he'll be joining us following the Monument Academy board meeting this evening. Tiffany Upchurch was elected to the Board of Education in November of 2017 and currently serves as the board's vice president. Mark Poff was originally appointed to the Board of Education in 2007 and currently serves as the board's secretary. Dennis Coates was hired as District 38 Chief of Security and Safety after serving many years as a school resource officer. And Mike Hester from GH Phipps Construction is a Senior Project Manager for the new elementary school building and related projects. We are also joined this evening by LPSD board members, Mr. Chris Taylor and Ms. Teresa Phillips. We're going to start with a video, and the following video provides a factual overview of the D38 MLO, which is question 4A, and the bond, question 4B, and those two ballot measures.
Lewis Palmer School District 38 has a strong tradition of excellence. D38 continues delivering excellence to the Tri-Lakes community and its students today, supporting student success now and beyond graduation. The Tri-Lakes area is growing. In light of the growth in this community, the D38 Board of Education is pursuing 2 ballot measures this November. This presentation provides relevant, factual information so that voters can make an informed decision regarding the D38 General Obligation Bond, referred to as bond in the remainder of this presentation, and mill levy override, referred to as an MLO. The school board's 2018-2019 goals state that they will engage in long-range planning for learning, achievement, safety, and facilities. The bond and MLO provide specific solutions for area growth and student and staff safety. The D38 School Board reached the decision regarding the bond and MLO after extensive study. This timeline illustrates the various types of research and community input that informed the board's decision. Early in 2017, a long-range facilities planning group consisting of current and former D38 educators, community members, parents, architects, and a demographer began studying current district facilities, building capacity, and expected growth. Numerous community open houses and deliberative engagement events, beginning in the spring of 2017 and continuing throughout the 2017-2018 school year, provided feedback from the community on the potential options for the district to pursue in order to accommodate the increasing student numbers. Driving through the Tri-Lakes area, numerous new housing construction sites now populate the neighborhoods. In April of this year, D38 requested an additional demographic study of the Tri-Lakes area from Templeton Demographics. Those findings reinforced the visual evidence of growth. In the last 2 years, new home sales have more than doubled within the district. Just a few months ago, there were 450 lots being developed, with 2,400 additional lots slotted for development. With all of these new houses come new families and new students. Many D38 schools are nearing capacity and are currently closed to out-of-district and out-of-boundary students. The Templeton Demographics findings state that D38 will have an additional 945 students in 5 years and an additional 1,789 students in 10 years. These findings influenced the board's decision to pursue a bond and MLO in November. In Colorado, K-12 education is funded according to the school finance formula. This funding is known as per pupil revenue, or PPR. Funding is gathered from taxpayers' property taxes and income taxes by the state and distributed to local school districts according to this formula. Local school districts are able to ask their communities for additional funds via bonds and MLOs. According to the 2017 Quality Counts report, Colorado's per-pupil spending is $9,471. This is based on 2014 audited data, the most current data available for a state-by-state comparison. This amount was below the U.S. average by $2,685. This places Colorado 40th in the nation in per-pupil spending. The D38 School Board has proposed the following to address growth and accommodate student needs. A $36.5 million bond would provide a new elementary school, convert Bear Creek Elementary back to a middle school — the facility was built and served as a middle school for 9 years — and provide safety and security improvements to all D38 schools, including Monument Academy Charter School. Improvements include secure entry vestibules for all schools and intercom warning systems. Additionally, the Board of Education will designate $3.5 million of the bond for the construction of a gymnasium, auditorium, or similar structure to be built in a collaborative agreement with Monument Academy. In other words, the structure will be owned by Lewis Palmer School District 38, and Monument Academy will maintain management and full use of the facility. If this is not possible, said funds will be placed in the D38 capital building reserves to be used for future district construction or to pay off general obligation debt. These conceptual renderings of a potential elementary school are a result of the work of the Design Advisory Group and CRP Architects. The Design Advisory Group consists of board member Chris Taylor, district administrators, principals, teachers, and former staff members. This design could be used to build the new elementary school if voters approve and the bond passes in November. It provides a template that could be duplicated as future elementary schools are needed, saving additional architectural design costs. Although many voters are familiar with education funding terms, this information is provided to clarify the legal terms bond and mill levy override, or MLO. A school bond election is a request from a school district asking the community to take on general obligation debt. Proceeds from the debt are used to build additional facilities such as a new school or to make capital improvements on existing facilities. This is the proposed bond ballot language that the Lewis Palmer School District 38 School Board will put on the November ballot. Ballot language in Colorado is formal and dictated by law, so voters see the entire cost, with interest, of any measure. Shall Lewis Palmer Consolidated School District Number 38 debt be increased $36.5 million, with a repayment cost of not more than $66.3 million? And shall such district taxes be increased not more than $5.2 million annually? And shall such debt be issued for capital improvement purposes, including but not limited to making safety and security enhancements to all district school buildings, including Monument Academy Charter School, constructing and equipping a new elementary school? It bears repeating, the Board of Education will designate $3.5 million of the bond for the construction of a gymnasium, auditorium, or similar structure to be built in a collaborative agreement with Monument Academy. If this is not possible, said funds will be placed in the D38 capital building reserves to be used for future district construction or to pay off general obligation debt. The Board is creating a resolution which states this and their other intents regarding the bond, such as a community oversight committee, types of security improvements, etc. A mill levy override, often referred to as an MLO, is a ballot measure that asks voters living in a school district boundary to approve the collection of additional school operating mills above what is required by the state of Colorado. Proceeds from MLOs can be used in a variety of ways, including salaries, operating expenses, and technology upgrades. This is the proposed MLO ballot language that the Lewis Palmer School District 38 School Board will put on the November ballot. Shall Lewis Palmer Consolidated School District Number 38 taxes be increased up to $1 million annually commencing in collection year 2019 through and including December 31, 2025, pursuant to and in accordance with Section 22-54-108 CRS, such additional revenues to be deposited in the general fund and used for educational purposes, including but not limited to increasing safety and security at all existing elementary, middle, and high schools, including Monument Academy Charter School, by hiring additional staff members devoted to the safety and security of students and to provide ongoing safety training to all staff. And shall the district be authorized to collect, retain, and spend all revenues from such taxes and the earnings from the investment of such revenues as a voter-approved revenue change and an exception to the limits which would otherwise apply under Article 10, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution or any other law. The ballot language states that funds will be collected through 2025. This means that the MLO sunsets or ends in 7 years. So, what will a $36.5 million bond and a $1 million MLO cost taxpayers in the Tri-Lakes area? An average home in this area costs $400,000. A homeowner of a $400,000 home would pay approximately an additional $14 per month. The bond costs approximately $9 each month, while the MLO would cost approximately $5 per month. An owner of a business valued at $400,000 would pay approximately $36 per month for the bond and $20 per month for the MLO. There are many reasons a voter might choose to vote for or against one or both of these ballot measures. Some arguments for the bond and MLO include: District 38 schools are currently nearing capacity or are at capacity. Safety and security improvements and additional support personnel at all District 38 schools, including Monument Academy, would benefit all students. Having good schools in the district keeps our local economy strong. Some arguments against the bond and MLO include: property taxes would increase, there is no guarantee of increased academic achievement, homeowner has no children in school system. Colorado ballots will be mailed beginning October 15. Every voter now receives a mail ballot at the mailing address provided through their voter registration file. If you have a Colorado State driver's license or ID card issued by the Department of Revenue, you may register to vote online at www.govotecolorado.com. If you are Lewis Palmer School District 38 has a strong tradition of excellence.
Goodness, this is killing me. Okay, so we are going to start, and we are going to ask questions of the panelists regarding the bond. So that's question 4B on the ballot. Reminder, if you have index cards with a question on it, go ahead and hold those up. Somebody will come and take them. They'll hand you another card, and if you need a pen, that can happen as well. Our first question is for Mr. Poff. How did we, as a community, end up with a $36.5 million bond on the November ballot?
Obviously, there was a lot of research over the years leading to growth. We've been working on growth, or a long-term strategy from the board on how to deal with growth. How did we actually get to the 36.5? Well, just to go through that real quick, the new elementary, I believe, is $29.5 million, if my memory serves me well. It's about $1 million to convert Creekside back to a middle school. And then there's an additional $3.5 million, well, actually there's $2.5 million for the security updates at all of our buildings. That would be physical security. It's not personnel. It's actually the buildings, hardening the structures. You know, a lot of these buildings are pretty old, and they, 30, 40 years ago, we didn't think of security the way that we do today. And there's 3.5 that's allocated for the collaborative agreement with the Monument Academy Charter School, and that's where we got to the $36.5 million. And I think it's important when we talk about building a new elementary that obviously we're going to have all the latest enhancements to security, just like with Palmer Ridge, which is our newest school. There's advancements there that were made. I think at this point, if your child's not going to go to that school, we owe the obligation to provide all the kids in the district a safe and secure environment, which is why we wanted the additional funds to harden every school in the district, to give the best security that we could to every child, no matter which school in our district they attended.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. This was not the next question, but apparently it's the next question. And Mark, you're going to ask it again.
Okay.
Sorry. Can one of our board members, Mr. Poff, explain the history of Bear Creek, Creekside Middle School, and what was the plan at that point for growth?
I'm the only board member that was actually on the board back when we made some changes a few years ago From some of you, if you've been in the district for a long time, we all know that we went through a recession and things became very tight with the budgets. And so the board had some very difficult decisions to make, and we determined that with the current enrollment that we could actually close down a school, which was the one that's right here behind us, which is Grace Best. And we did the math. We back then we had, in the middle schools, we had 6th, 7th, and 8th. So we collapsed down to one middle school, which is Lewis Palmer Middle School, and had just 6th and 7th at the one middle school. All the elementaries went to K through 6. And this saved us probably about $1 million to $1.5 million a year, which allowed us to get through the recession. And not only did it save us money, but we actually had, you know, the old phrase, build it and they will come. We knew from our constituents in Jackson Creek that they wanted an elementary in their neighborhood. We knew this. A lot of them were telling us that. And so when we converted and made Creekside Middle School into the current Bear Creek Elementary, everybody loved it. It was a big success. And so that school now has approximately 900 to 1,000 kids in it. So we knew when we made that decision back then as a board that there was going to be a time when we come out of the recession, growth was going to come back to our area. We knew at that point that we would be converting that back to a middle school. And we also knew, not a lot of people know, that it was always designed on that property to have a middle school and an elementary right next door. The infrastructure is there, which saves us a great deal of money by building an elementary in a spot that it was predetermined. The only difference is back then, we thought it was going to be an elementary around 400 kids. Well, again, build it and they will come. And so we're now planning for a 650, so it has to be a little bit larger. So some plans have been adjusted. So that's always been the plan of the board, was that when the recession ended, growth came back to our area, that we would convert that, go back to a 2 middle school structure, 6 through 8, and then add another elementary right next door.
Okay, so I just want to clarify that the Lewis Palmer Middle School is 7th and 8th, not 6th and 7th.
Oh, did I say 6th?
You did.
It's
and
7th and 8th, correct.
Okay, thank you. Just a second, please. That's okay, no problem. This question is for Cheryl. Given that the new elementary school can accommodate 650 students, how do you plan to accommodate the entire current K-6 population on the Bear Creek site?
And I know Karen.
See, it's not just me.
It's technology.
No, you guys talk on these every month.
So the question is how we're going to accommodate the entire K-6 enrollment on the Bear
Creek site.
if the bond were to pass.
Correct.
So if the bond were to pass, first of all, the 6th graders would move up to the middle school, to what is currently Bear Creek, the Creek site. So that will move us to K-5. Certainly, all of our buildings are rapidly approaching being full. The district is very concerned about how we're going to make sure we have capacity for all of our kids, especially our K through 5th graders. We're currently looking at a number of models, looking at the preschools, looking at the K-5 enrollment, working with our demographer that was mentioned in the slideshow to look at different scenarios to see what we could do in terms of the enrollment growth we're currently experiencing. One thing, though, I think that bears mention, regardless of rather this bond passes this November or not, we will have to look at where we're going to put all of our children, because simply put, at most of our elementary schools, we are currently running out of room. We're working into the preschool classrooms. We have our chief of security in a closet right now. In January, we will be taking our teacher's lounge at the middle school and using that for a classroom, and teachers could go on and on with stories. But the real point is our growth is exceeding our capacities currently district-wide, not just at Bear Creek. And Karen might have something to add to that. I don't know. Okay.
Thank you. Tiffany, what did the community polls show surrounding the bond and the MLO?
So the polls were something that us as a board looked at when we made our decision on how we were going to put the bond on the ballot. The polling showed very positive results for strong schools in our community. It showed very strong support for safety and security in our community. It also showed that those that were polled had a strong reaction in favor of to get ahead of enrollment growth only. So we put all that polling information. It also showed positive results for favoritism to put MA on the ballot. So we looked at all those factors and decided what would be the best way to make sure that we're addressing our capacity and we're addressing our safety and security needs and ensuring that it would pass. So we took those polls into consideration. I did personally greatly.
Thank you very much. Mark? Why did the district wait so long to get this figured out? We knew the growth was coming.
Okay, that may be the toughest question of the night. You know, I can make all kinds of excuses, but, you know, school boards change. You know, we have elections every 2 years, and it's always challenging to bring the new board members up very quickly. We have been doing this growth study for a while. I know Karen would say, and any administrator who's been doing this for a long time would tell you, it's a 2-year cycle. And we basically started at about 18 months. And I would tell you that we should have probably had the decision for the bond probably in January or February. And the only thing I can do is just say we could have done a better job. We should have had this decision earlier, but sometimes, you know, good decisions, or if you want to say the optimally worked out decision, sometimes takes a few months to get it fine-tuned.
That was very nice dancing.
Well, that's exactly what it was.
Okay, this question is for Mike, and it's, let me put two of these together. If the bond passes, when will the elementary school be ready?
The bond passes, the elementary school will be starting in December of this year and will finish in August of next year. It'll be an 8-month schedule and open for the next school year.
Okay. And how can you possibly complete a new school in 8 months?
To complete this project, it's a joint effort. Right now, we're already doing pre-planning, pre-construction. We're going through and qualifying subcontractors that have the manpower and the ability to do this amount of work in such a short amount of time. We've also started. The schedule will automatically be 6/10s rather than a standard 40-hour work week, which requires 2 crews and overlap because people can't work 60 hours a week for 8 months. The productivity drops. We know that. So we will qualify the subcontractors with the manpower that can do that. So if you do the math right there, you're working 60 hours a week rather than 40 hours a week. You take 8 months, and now it's a 12-month schedule. So a 12-month schedule for a job this size is about what you need to do. We understand we're working in Monument, and weather's a factor. And as long as we don't get the storm of all storms and the winter of all winters, we will succeed.
Thank you. Karen, I have a 5th grader right now, not me. Where will she go to 6th grade?
If the next year, if the bond passes, that 6th grader will go to one of 2 middle schools. Because as we convert, as we open up a new elementary school on the Bear Creek site, we will then convert the existing the existing Bear Creek, used to be Creekside Middle School, back to a middle school, and we will create a feeder system, which means that what we have going on now is where we have some elementary students that eventually end up at Lewis Palmer High School, and some elementary students from certain elementaries end up at Palmer Ridge. We will have 2 middle schools that create the feeder system for those high schools. So those elementary schools will feed into the south side middle school or the north side middle school. North side middle school will feed into Palmer Ridge. South side middle school will feed into Lewis Palmer. I'm pointing in the wrong direction, but get the idea. And so that fifth grader will go to one of two elementary schools middle schools based on their attendance area as defined by the feeder system.
Great, thank you. Next question is for Cheryl. How does community growth change tax impact to taxpayers, and does this change monthly? I can't explain, I can only read.
Great question. So obviously, community growth does change monthly. But in terms of property taxes, which is what drives this general obligation debt, the county assessor assesses the value of the properties in December of every year. So it's an annual basis as opposed to a monthly basis. And then that assessed valuation is what our Board of Education uses to certify the mill levy for the next year when you get your property tax bill, if you will. As we gain homes and additional businesses, there basically is increased assessed valuation to spread those tax payments around for debt. So right now, obviously, we're having rapid growth in home values because we have more homes and the prices are going up and the cost of homes. So there is also an increase in assessed valuation. So long story short, more homes, more businesses, more assessed valuation or property value to share the load of the tax debt on the taxpayers. And so obviously right now we're having quite an increase, thus the more students as well. Oh, so the monthly payments are obviously, sorry, getting to the point of the question, the mill levy rates actually go down as we have more homes.
Great, thank you. And the next question is also for you, so hold on to that.
Try to do a better job.
How is the $14 per month for taxpayers within a $400,000 valued home calculated, and is there a place to see the data for those calculations?
So it's calculated based on the assessed valuation, as well as the amount of debt that needs to be covered for that particular year. And there is a calculation where a place where you can see those calculations, and we'll get that up on the district's website shortly.
Okay.
With the increase in assessed valuation with all the homes coming in, the dollar amounts projected every year on this debt that the taxpayers have to pay goes down.
Thank you. This question is for Dawn. Welcome. What is the status of Monument Academy's plan to build a high school?
The best way to describe it is that we're on parallel tracks. So everybody can hear you. You can hear me now.
That's it.
I apologize for being late, but we were having our own board meeting as was going on. The best way to describe our progress is that we're on parallel tracks, and so one of those tracks is the land acquisition. One of the tracks is the planning phase, much as what the district is going through. We've already selected not only our builder's rep, our architect, and also our construction company that will do that. We've already started having meetings with the county, both for infrastructure and for the traffic. We've already commissioned a traffic study, and so we're well on that way. While we won't be working 60-hour weeks, we will have a 14-month schedule for the build-out and plan to be open in 2020, August of 2020.
Great, thank you. This next question is for Tiffany. My understanding is the original recommendation was for 2 elementary schools. Why was the second one dropped if it's really needed?
So growth is booming on all 4 corners of our school district, and it's affecting everybody, including our homeschool enrichment academy, who just added 30 more students. Our middle school just added 75 more students. Our high school at Lewis Palmer High School, they have 100 more students. So we are growing, and we do have a need for more than one school. And so the long-range facilities planning efforts have not been ignored. They're still being put into consideration. However, when we considered what we were going to put on the bond, again, that polling showed that ideally you want to see a 70%, and we were at 60%. So it was essential, and it is important that if we don't have a school, then we have a lot of really tough decisions to make. So we decided to make sure that we could go for a bond that would allow us to market and make sure our taxpayers and our stakeholders understand how much we need a school. So we went for what we thought was the smartest and wisest way to address our growth at this time.
Thank you. Are all the microphones working? No. Can we break just for a second and make sure all the microphones work?
Mine's good.
Test.
Don't drop them. Thank you. All right.
Can I add to that?
Can you?
Yeah.
Sure.
So with this plan right now that we have on the ballot, we're looking at the 650 student capacity elementary school. We also keep in mind that Monument Academy is also building, and that will also free up space too, so that when it comes time for us to start on our next phase of our next elementary school, we do have a collaborative effort that addresses our capacity district-wide with all of our schools.
Great, thank you. All right, is everybody good? We're gonna play games for a minute, but we know that Mark's microphone works.
Mine definitely works.
So we're gonna ask you the next question. How will the district ensure the millions of dollars the taxpayers are giving you will be spent the way the district says they will?
Excellent question. As a lot of you probably know, we actually have an MLO right now called the 99 MLO. And we basically report every year how those dollars are spent. There's a special report just for that. And in the wording of our, not the bond wording, but our resolution, we're going to put a committee together. And it's going to be made up of some community members as well. And they're going to review exactly how all the money is spent to ensure that every year that it is spent the way that it's supposed to. Obviously with the bond, it's going to probably all be spent in the next year as we're building the school and doing the other capital improvements. But with the MLO ongoing for 7 years, every year we will report to the community exactly how every penny of that MLO is spent.
Thank you. This next question is for Karen, if her microphone works.
It's all right. Mine does, and we're just still trying to get this one fixed, but it's fine.
Traffic at Bear Creek Elementary is already challenging, especially turnout onto Jackson Creek Parkway. How will the increase in traffic be managed with the elementary and the middle school so close together?
There's probably two aspects to this question, so I might turn the second part over to Mike because he can address the construction portion of this question. We actually have studied this, and because it'll be a staggered start, and because of how we're structuring and designing the drop-off area, we feel confident that we can manage 2 different schools, drop-off and pick-up, and actually maybe in some cases enhance what we have going on there already by redesigning some of the drop-off area. But I know that there is a concern, because I've heard it multiple times from people, about what about during construction? Is that just going to be a mess because we're going to have traffic going to Bear Creek and yet construction going on right next door? So Mike, do you want to take that one?
We'll work with the district as far as, so you've got 2 different start times. You've got an elementary start time and you've got a middle school start time. The construction start time will also be staggered. It'll probably be a little bit earlier than the other 2. And what we're going to do for safety reasons and everything else is we're going to completely separate our entrance from the elementary and middle school and come in at a different area so that construction traffic's not fighting with the everyday drop-off and everything else. All of our deliveries are going to be scheduled. We will do a study and figure out what the best time for those kind of deliveries with larger trucks and stuff like that. We're used to working on occupied campuses, and the safety of the students and being able to work with you guys is at the top of our list.
Thank you.
And just to clarify that we will just have elementary while the construction is going on, so.
Right, Karen. When will the new elementary school reach capacity?
Immediately. I really, honestly, what we're doing is we will have to restructure, even with boundaries and some other things, and it will fill the elementary school. With the current capacity, the current enrollment we have now will fill the new elementary. And we actually need to make some modifications to our plan, potentially for preschool or something else, to make sure that happens, or boundaries.
Thank you. I'm going to ask this next question to Tiffany and then to Dawn. Why is the $3.5 million for Monument Academy not split out as a separate bond question?
So we actually did discuss that as a board, and Mark made that recommendation. When we voted, I can tell you what was on my mind was, when we're looking at consolidating our efforts, what is the wisest way to campaign, and making sure that we are doing this strong and hitting the streets ready to go with a campaign that is solid seemed like the wisest choice, instead of asking the taxpayers to look at multiple ballot issues, to make sure that it was clear and confined on what we're looking at.
Dawn, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
I think this is working. Maybe it's not. It is working.
It is.
Again, while a lot of what Tiffany said is true about separate bond issues, the $3.5 million as part of the overall bond seemed to make more sense to us as well. And collectively, that is why we agreed to that particular composition.
Great, thank you. This question is for you, Dawn. Is it true that Monument Academy is negotiating with the YMCA to build a pool on their site?
We are currently partnering with the Y. Later on this month, the Y executives and myself will be going to Lincoln, Nebraska to look at a middle school Y project that they're doing there. Our plans right now call for looking at potential things that we can do in concert with one another. They have some needs, we have some needs, and so that'll be that. Long-range plans call for the Y to look at building an aquatic center. They're talking about an 8-lane, 25-meter competition center that would be funded completely by the Y, that just would happen to be on some of our property.
Great, thank you. Cheryl, many in the local community feel the district should be able to fund growth with per pupil revenue and new home taxes. So believes the district has mismanaged taxpayer money. Why doesn't the video mention that the district receives less than $400 per new house built in the county?
So there's a lot of questions wrapped up in that. So first of all, starting at the end, in the state of Colorado, the local governments, the counties and the cities that are incorporated determine how much money a school district gets on each new home towards new schools. El Paso County's rate is approximately $400 per home, and Palmer Lake and the town of Monument have one of the highest rates in the state at about $1,400 a home. Unfortunately, that $400 a home or $1,400 a home isn't near as high as what you would see in other states. So there's not enough money from all those homes. Just take $400 times, say, 650 kids and do the math. Not near enough money to buy the land and build the schools. So here in Colorado, it's the general obligation debt amongst all the taxpayers that pay for the new buildings. So that's that piece. And can you repeat, because I think I missed a part.
It's a large part of the question. So let me read the whole thing again.
Okay.
Many in the local community feel the district should be able to fund growth with the per pupil revenue and new home taxes. So believes the district has mismanaged taxpayer money. Why doesn't the video mention that the district receives less than $400 per new house built in the county?
Okay, so I'll take the district mismanaged money part out of it. So, first of all, Lewis Palmer School District per pupil revenue is one of the lowest per pupil revenues in the state. Despite that, through the hard work of our teachers and our staff, we are one of the highest performing school districts in the state. So, and per a survey done by the by the town of Monument, we know that we are the top draw for the town of Monument in terms of new families coming in. So obviously the return on investment that our taxpayers get for our school district is high. That being said, the district has a long history of financial stability even throughout the economic crisis, and obtains awards every year that are nationally recognized over on the corner over there for review of our finances and our audits.
Thank you.
Could I?
You sure can.
Okay, I just, having been on the board for a while, first off, when I came on this board 11 years ago, the district actually was spending about $3 million more a year than it made. So that's obviously an issue. The school district as of today, and we can say this for probably about the last 6 or 7 years, we've been in the black. We've had a balanced budget for multiple years, even throughout the recession. In fact, this district, other than buildings that we owe money on, we're debt-free. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have obligations that we have to pay, bills like payroll and stuff, but we don't have any loans or debts other than buildings at this point. And if you just do the math real simply, and just so people can kind of get this, in the county, every house that's built in the county, we get about, it's under 400. Monument was actually pretty good. They made it 1,100. So if you do the math, if you have 1,000 homes and there's half a kid, don't try to figure that one out. There's a half a kid in each home. That's 500 kids. That's about a new school. So every 1,000 homes is a new school that we need to build. If we got all in Monument, that's $1.1 million. Now, how much did we say that we need for a new school? $29.5 million. So it's not even close. The structure that's set up in the state of Colorado for building infrastructure for new schools is not even close to what we need. So what happens is we have to go to the community and say, look, we got to deal with growth, you know, and so we have to kind of say, help us out here ahead of time, lend us some money here from debt, we're going to get some bonds, we'll build a new school. And so that's how it works in the state of Colorado. So to say it has nothing to do with us mismanaging, because we're basically debt-free and we basically have a balanced budget, but there's no way we can swing $29.5 million out of our reserves. We only have about 7 or 8 million, which is considered pretty good. So that's how it works in the state of Colorado.
Thank you. Karen, this is a two-part question. When the 6th grade is moved to the middle school, will there be excess capacity in the elementary schools?
I would say it depends on the elementary, and it depends on how you describe excess capacity. For instance, Kilmer Elementary is growing very quickly. We grew 30 more students than we expected at Kilmer. We have a lot of different developments that are going in that feed into Kilmer. So it's unlikely that Kilmer will have excess capacity for long. Palmer Lake probably has some of the greatest excess, will have the greatest excess capacity when we initially move everyone to middle school. I keep looking at Corey because she's the one that asked the question, but I really need to look at all of you. And, but again, we know some developments are going to go in that could potentially go to the Palmer Lake, into the Palmer Lake elementary area, I should say, attendance area. So Lewis Palmer Elementary, not far behind, it's going to fill up pretty quickly based on our projections. Likewise, as I said, the new school next to Bear Creek will be full the minute it opens. So we will have some relief and from 6th graders no longer attending those elementaries, but it will be very short-lived at most schools.
Great. Now the next question is, where will the 6th grade teachers go?
Also a good question. So when I wasn't here when that happened, but I have been in school districts where we made changes like this. 6th grade was in, 6th grade was in the middle school, then it went to the elementary, then it went back to the middle school. And typically, our sixth grade teachers are endorsed as elementary education teachers. Many of our sixth grade teachers that were teaching at the middle school may have also had a middle school endorsement at one point in time, but many carried both. In the state of Colorado, you can teach sixth grade only sixth grade. You can teach sixth grade, any content area in a middle school, as long as it's sixth grade only, because that's the endorsement in Colorado is K-6. So many of our teachers that currently teach sixth grade were in the middle school at one point in time, especially if they've been here for a while. Some of them do have content, also have an endorsement in a specific area like math or whatever. So most of them will probably move to the middle school because they have an interest in teaching that level of student.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mark, the next one is, I'm trying to consolidate 3 questions into one. So they're all about the same thing, but I also don't want to be offensive. Can the district decide not to spend $3.5 million on a building for Monument Academy? And why do I, as a taxpayer, what do I get out of this?
Okay.
Can the district decide not to spend $3.5 million on a building for Monument Academy? And why, as a taxpayer, what do I get out of this?
Okay. The second part I really understand. The first part is the board, and if someone has been coming to a lot of our board meetings, you would see where there was a lot of conversation back and forth about this subject matter. And there's a lot of state laws that actually apply to this, to how you can work with your charter school and stuff. I think as a district, we owe the obligation to provide an excellent education to all the kids in the district. I think we should partnership with our charter school wherever we can help them, wherever we can be collaborative. I think one of them I'm hoping is still going on is I think we provide meals to the charter school. We provide busing for whenever they go on field trips. So there's ways that we can work with the charter school. And I think most people know that, and it's probably why you asked me, is that I did not advocate for putting Monument Academy originally on the same bond. And the dilemma that I said very clearly was that taxpayers should have the right, and there were some concerns about where the money was going to go, and I thought as for taxpayers, I couldn't support that. That's when we came up with what I refer to as the compromise, which is it eliminates some of the dilemma when we allocate $3.5 million to collaborate with our charter school to build a building that will co-locate at their location. This is the way that I kind of looked at it. I know we can't talk about specifically where they plan on building, but I know that there's a site that they're very interested in. This building will belong to the district. So it's still controlled by the school board, by the taxpayers. So you as taxpayers who will be giving us those funds, we will have control over that building. But we will be collaborating not only with Monument Academy, with that community in that area, and allowing for the use of that. And that's one of the things that we're going to negotiate and work out. You know, that's why it kind of sounds like, well, sounds like you don't have everything worked out. Well, we don't. What we have worked out is that we'd like to collaborate with our charter school and for that community in that area. So I would like to envision it to be just like with Grace Best right here. It's a district resource. Another good example is Don Breeze Stadium. Don Breeze is co-located at Lewis Palmer High School. It's not controlled, well, it probably is, but it's not Lewis Palmer's stadium. It's the district stadium. So that's kind of the way to look at this new building that we're collaborating with Monument Academy. This building is going to belong to District 38, and all the kids of the district will have an opportunity to use that if need be. But we're co-locating it with the charter school in a collaboration. So I hope that explained it well, and I know the second part, what was the second part real quick?
What do I get out of it as a taxpayer?
Well, I originally was even kind of said as a rec center. A lot of small communities, you know, because individuals could never build a rec center, but sometimes a school district in collaboration with the town, you know, they would put money together to build a rec center. So I kind of look at this as a community center, whether it's going to be an auditorium or a gym. We're still going to work that out. which would be the best. It might be that in that location we think an auditorium might be better for the district to own, an auditorium that some of the local other schools could use, but we're going to hash all that out. I think the important thing is that we're collaborating with our charter school.
Great, thank you. This is for Cheryl. Where will the funding come for the new teachers and the operating expenses at the new elementary school?
And our board members may want to add a little bit about that. When you add into S school into the district, you obviously have an increase in fixed costs, things like the principal, the nurse, the janitorial, the utilities, the maintenance on that building. So there's a steep increase in fixed costs, operating costs when you open another building. And there's basically in Colorado 2 ways to fund for that new school. One way to fund would be to ask for additional operating mills to operate that building. The other way to fund is to set aside dollars in the ongoing operational revenues that are associated with the new students that come in, set those dollars aside, and use those dollars towards the increased operational costs of that additional building. Our Board of Education decided that it was best to go ahead and set operating dollars aside from the new students that come in. So, knowing that the school was coming up and that it was likely to be opened in 2 years, we set aside half the funds that we feel we need in this year's budget, and we'll set the other half aside this fall, so we'll have the dollars when the building opens.
Great, thank you. By the way, I have amazing questions here. I just want to let you guys know. Thank you. Karen, if the bond and the MLO pass, how many additional seats will be added and at what grades?
It will be really the capacity of that new elementary, which is about 450. Excuse me, 650, thank you. I was remembering the comment Mark made about 400.
Right.
So 650. And then we will also have additional seats at the middle school level. In terms of the number, I think we're looking at about 200 per, or
So
remind me.
It'll be 900 additional, or 900 seats will move from elementary to middle, if you will. Not
Okay.
additional capacity.
It's not additional
Okay.
capacity, though. I think that's why I'm trying to, in my head, trying to calculate the additional capacity that we have at each middle school.
Okay.
Because what we're doing is we'll create a little bit of additional capacity at each middle school. Even after we push in the 6th grade students, we'll have a little bit of extra capacity, and it's about, I think it is about 200 per middle school.
Yeah, it'd be about 200 per middle school per grade, or 250 per middle school per grade. We're running about 500 to 600 students now per grade level. Another way to look at it is with that 650 student capacity for that new elementary school is, our demographer estimated we would grow 200 students this year, and it looks like he's going to be darn close to right. So we grow about 1/3 of a school a year right now with the rate we're having with growth.
Okay, Cheryl, this is also for you, and it's a 2-part. How much does Grace Best cost the district, and what's happening with this building? It used to be an elementary school.
So I don't know if someone else might want to take the last part of that question. But how much does Grace Best cost the district? So let's just start there. Grace Best serves a number of unique and very different purposes right now. We have our science distribution center in it right now that has 1 staff member, and what the science distribution center is that it makes up science lesson kits for all of our teachers. I believe it is K through about 6th or 7th grade. I mean, the teachers are going, that's right. And so that the teacher doesn't have to put together the frogs that are going to be dissected or the chemicals for the experiment. It all comes in a box. They can open up the box and teach the lesson. So it takes about 3 classrooms, no cost there other than heat, and 1 staff employee. Then we have our homeschool academy, which is wildly successful. We have 130 students there every Thursday. They're on the 2nd floor of the newer part of Grace Best. We get 1/2 student funding for those kiddos, and it's been very good for our homeschool folks to have some enrichment opportunities for their students, and then those students very often matriculate back into our middle schools and high schools. And the fact of the matter is, they bring in more dollars into the district than they take out of the district. The third piece for Grace Best is our transition kiddos. Many people don't know, but for very impacted special needs kiddos that are from 18 to 22 years old, I think I've got my ages right, we, by law, provide services for those students. We have about 18 students a year. About half of those students go to college at Pikes Peak Community College, and half of them part-time, and half of them stay in district with us. We, by law, have to have facilities for those students somewhere, and those students take up about the equivalent of about 5 classrooms. So, and the last piece is the gym, which is used almost every night. I'm sure there's people over there right now. We operate that as a community asset for children, and we don't make money and we don't lose money on it.
Great, thank you. This question is for Tiffany. How will boundaries be impacted at each level, elementary, middle, and high, if the bond passes and if it doesn't pass?
How
How will
it
the
be
boundaries be impacted?
Well, that's still a discussion that's yet to be had. There's whether we build a school or not, we're going to have to look at boundaries. Anytime you put in a new building, you're going to be looking at boundaries. Those students that are on the south side of 105 will be going to the new middle school, so obviously they'll be going to a new location. We're hoping that there will be minimal impact if we are able to pass this bond. We'll have to look at things such as our pre-K. We'll have to look at our 6th graders going into the middle school. So we will be rebounding our middle school students anyway. But after November, we can look at demographics with a demographer and look at what is that impact. And right now, we honestly haven't had that honest discussion. It's an honest discussion that has to happen. It's on all of our minds. I think it's on every one of our minds. And Cheryl and Karen may have more to add to that, but, or Mark.
Usually the administration is probably, my guess is, as Karen would say, they're already looking into it both ways. But I would say as a board member, and Karen, no matter what happens, whether we get the bond passed or not, my guess is there will be some minor boundary changes for the following school year no matter what. Because one, we're going to have a new school, so we're going to have to make some minor changes. If we don't have a new school, I'm sure we're going to have to make some changes to shuffle with the continued resources we have.
And the only thing I would add is we've been looking at this a little bit more closely. Cheryl and I have met with our demographer, Templeton Demographics, to look at where our growth will come and trying to evaluate. Obviously, our growth is mostly happening on the south end of our district. So we will have to establish boundaries that balance things so that there's more open space in buildings on the south end than there is on buildings on the north end, because we won't see as much growth on the north end. But we also have the opportunity to solve a few issues. For instance, right now, the Prairie Winds attendance area currently is split in terms of half of them go to Lewis Palmer High School and half of them go to Palmer Ridge. We have an opportunity to shift that as we change that, so that as we create a feeder system, all of Prairie Winds can ultimately go to Palmer Ridge, and all of Prairie Winds can ultimately go to the Lewis Palmer Middle School, versus dividing those kids after they finish their 5th grade year at Prairie Winds. So those are the kinds of things we'll evaluate and look at. But in addition to making some changes that help us with growth, we also see some opportunities that could ultimately be positive in terms of keeping kids together that have been together.
Okay, great. This question is for Dawn. Does MA support the bond and the MLO? And what is the MA community doing to help promote them?
Well, our board meeting tonight, we passed 2 resolutions which mirror both of the resolutions that were passed on Monday night. So our board unanimously endorsed both the bond question and the MLO going forward. We'll communicate all of that to our families tomorrow and our parent communication. We're also going to provide the link to the excellent film that was produced by D38 so they can have more information.
That's great. And I'm going to dovetail on that. Karen, how is the video being distributed to the community?
Because it's a factual video, we actually have had it approved. It meets all the fair campaign practices as not considered a campaign video. So we are able to put it on our website. We're able to post it on Facebook. Other people can repost, etc. But we are actually making it widely available. We're also using it throughout the district to, again, to provide factual information as we go around and speak to community groups and help them understand so that they can make an informed vote in November. Our goal is to make sure that people make that vote, that decision, based on accurate information. Right now, we have to be careful about, now is the time during when you first put something on the ballot that a lot of information gets out, and our goal was to get out right away and let people know what the facts were so that misinformation didn't begin to build. So we will use every possible avenue to distribute it. Best way to describe it.
Thank you. Mark. I don't have students in school, and I'm retired and live on a fixed income. So I don't think $14 a month is a minimal amount. How will these ballot questions help the community as a whole, not just students and parents? And how is this, and you're also supposed to talk about the Homestead Act.
Okay. My youngest child last May graduated from Palmer Ridge. So I am now part of that. I've asked my wife to retire, so I'm kind of in that group. I'd like to retire. Obviously, the first thing that always comes up has to do with property values. And whenever I hear that, I understand the Homestead Act, which is that if you're 65 and you've lived in your house for 10 years, that's the right one, that you pay less taxes. I believe that's, I just want to make sure I'm referencing the right.
I am not going to give you any information other than read you the question.
I would tell you I'm in that situation right now, basically. I'm near to retirement. I think there's the value of community, that we're a very successful community. In fact, I always talk about the fact that I feel Monument is the best kept secret. Unfortunately, it's not the best kept secret anymore because a lot of people move in now. I actually moved here before Walmart was here, and I can value the old days of why my wife and I moved up here. We have a wonderful community, and one of the things that makes this community so great is I think we have the best school district in the state of Colorado. And we have a great small town feel. I love being part of this community, and I want to support this community. And as soon as my youngest left, I changed Xfinity to not have unlimited download anymore because my kids always play Xbox and stuff. That saved me $50 a month. So I've got it covered already by doing that. So I would tell you, for me, the $14 or $15 a month, looking at it from the standpoint of I don't have any kids in the district anymore. And I, without a hesitation, knowing what I know, having been on the board for 10 years and the marvelous job that we do actually educating our kids, do we want our community to change? Do we want to lower our standards for what we're known for having tremendous schools? Are we going to, we're a pretty demanding community when we ask for some of these things that we, why we came here in the first place. Are we going to let that go and just say, you know what, I don't have any kids in the district anymore. Why should I care? Well, I don't have any kids in this district, and I still care. And I want this district to achieve, and I love to brag. I can't tell you how much I love to brag being on the school board for Lewis Palmer. I mean, it's known throughout the state, not only just in academics, but the arts and sports. We have a phenomenal community here, and I want to keep it the way it is. So for me, $15 a month to preserve that, when's the last time that we chipped in more money? And here's the kicker. We have two schools, Prairie Winds and Creekside, that we're going to pay off in 7 years. Less than, your taxes are going to go down. And that $15, I say 15 because I always round up a little bit just to be safe. It's going to be $15 next year, And it's probably going to be 14 the next year, then 13, then 12. And then when we pay off Prairie Winds and Creekside, it's going to drop by like probably 10, 15 bucks. So you're only talking about increasing your taxes, the maximum of 14 or 15 a month for the next year or two. Then it's going to continually to go down. Now, are we going to come back? It won't be me because I'll be off the board. Is there a good chance in 2 to 3 years we're going to ask for another school? Yes. But that's how it works. So for me, I think it is something to value and keep that community that we have. I think it's well worth the expense.
And the only thing I'd want to add to that is our polling did at it was like 85% rate, and that was among retirees, everyone. One thing that resonated was the understanding that strong schools do impact the local economy and property values to a significant level. And there's a lot of research out there that ask any realtor would tell you that the strength of the school system is directly correlated to the property values in that community. Additionally, I think we do have a really strong community that works together to support the overall health of the community. And so the school district is just one component of that.
Can I also add one thing?
Of course you can.
90%, the polls came 90% that our community supports strong schools. And I'm going to go ahead and state the motto that I love. Our strong schools make for a strong community, and a strong community makes for strong schools. And these students in our schools today are our future. And so we're investing in our future.
Thank you, Tiffany. All right, it is 7:40. We are done with the bond portion. Now recognize, not all of the questions have been asked, and I understand that. These questions are going to be transferred over to the October 11th event. So these questions will be asked at the October 11th event. So even if your question didn't get answered tonight on the bond portion, you have another opportunity to have it answered. So we're going to take a 2-minute break, and then we're going to go on and talk about the MLO. You guys not?
I'm good. I mean, we'll make it real quick. And I'm willing to stick around to answer any questions afterwards of anybody who has any questions.
Oh. Okay, can we have everyone take our seats, and we're going to talk about the MLO portion of the ballot questions. And the first question is for Dennis.
I was good the first time.
No. How is the district addressing safety and security now?
Now it's, we're continually trying to improve it. You know, the Claire Davis Act a year ago kind of started and kind of mandated some things. And obviously there wasn't a whole lot of money there, so you know, everything that we do on the security side, we wanted to make sure that we weren't taken away from the classroom and our educational process. What we've done now is we have added, you know, I came on about 1.5 years ago, and we've recently added 3 additional security positions. And I take that back. We've only actually added 1 additional security position and replaced 2 others by enhancing them. So it's a process, and you know, we have administrators and community members that we do a great job, but I want to make sure we're ahead, because as we continue to grow and we get stretched, our resources get stretched, and I think every parent, you know, expects and to a certain point demands that the school investigate and thoroughly look through everything that we can. And as kids continue to grow, there's only so much of each one of us. So, you know, we've taken steps, and with the limited resources that we have, and with the MLO, we'll continue to make parents feel as comfortable as possible that when they come to school, that they're going to come home.
Thank you. Cheryl, how will the MLO dollars be spent? Does MA get any monies from the MLO, and if so, how much?
So the MLO is for $1 million per year, and it sunsets in 7 years. According to state law, Monument Academy gets their proportional share of all MLO dollars based on the October 1 count. For example, right now they're about 15% of our enrollment, so they'd get about 15% of that $1 million. The Board of Education passed a resolution on how those MLO dollars would be spent. I could answer that, or I'd be happy to defer that to one of our board members.
Well, the one thing that I think is important that the taxpayers understand is the philosophy behind the school board for including Monument Academy, and understand they can't spend that on whatever they want. They get a percentage, but it has to be spent on the items in the MLO. And this is safety and security. And there's kind of a balanced approach to that. You know, we need to protect and provide a safe and secure environment to every kid in this district, whether they go to a traditional school or to a charter school. And understand that MLOs are for personnel, for training, reoccurring costs. It's not for buildings, but you can buy some items with it. So it's kind of an offset of, with the Claire Davis Act, we now owe, we always did, but it's more, you know, school districts can be sued. They're really the only governmental operation that does not have immunity, and they can be sued. So we have to show due diligence. You know, 20 years ago, would we have ever thought, you know, that we'd have to worry about this stuff? And now we do. We have to provide safety and security to all of our students. So I know that of the percentage, it's going to be split about 50-50, or not really 50-50 on security. And there's going to be a percentage on individuals that will do assessments, wellness assessments. And understand that, you know, our teachers are there to teach, and counselors are there to counsel. We really don't have adequate staff to really assess what's going on with our students. And so it'll provide some of that, and it will provide some security. And Monument Academy will get some of that as well. There's training that we need to go on. You know, we do all kinds of fire drills, but there hasn't been a fire in a school you know, that's hurt anybody in years. But we need to have, you know, training for, unfortunately, if these events ever happen in our school district.
Great.
So I can tell,
go ahead.
if you want to know the exact amounts, 780,000 is the approximate amount that will be shared for our wellness support staff and our security staff, and that'll be evenly balanced. About 170,000 will go to Monument Academy, and about 20,000 will be the approximate amount that'll go for ongoing costs associated with weapons designated canines that detect canines. And of course, all of those costs will fluctuate depending on factors such as inflation and the needs, so that can fluctuate as well.
Great, thank you. Don, what will Monument Academy do with the money to increase security?
I wish I could tell you in detail, but we never discuss details of our security. I will tell you that we have an ongoing program where Homeland Security, former FBI agents, several different insurance underwriters who specialize in school security visit the school about once a quarter. And so the money, as Mark said, is very specifically earmarked. So we'll be spending it on those items that we feel are necessary. But we have the same obligation. And again, every school district that we have here, maybe with the exception of Palmer Ridge, was built before any of these things anybody ever thought of. So trying to harden a facility and have the systems in place is very difficult to retrofit. And so a lot of that money will go to help to do just that.
Great, thank you. Tiffany, why aren't we using some of this money to raise the salaries of teachers?
So this MLO is very specifically designated to safety and security needs. Again, that's one of the items that, things that stood out strong with our community. I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think I probably speak for much of the board that teacher salary is one of the foremost priorities on my mind when I think of where funding shortfalls are, and teacher salaries is one of those. But this particular MLO is designated for our needs of safety and security and then the bond for our growth. We also did actually, and Cheryl can speak more on this too, we did actually, we were able to, with some of our funding that we got from our increased funding, give our teachers raises this year.
Thank you. Mark, why are there 2 questions on the ballot addressing safety and security?
Great question. Understand, like we said earlier, bonds are for buildings, structures, bricks. And so there's safety to address hardening, what I talked about earlier. You know, we want to build this new school, and this is what Don said, is, you know, Palmer Ridge was the only school that was built, I think, you know, kind of after, and so it's actually designed with some of that in mind, but the rest of our schools were not designed with that in mind. And we've tried to retrofit. If you look at Lewis Palmer High School, you'll notice that there's actually inside the front doors, and go there. Next time you go to Lewis Palmer High School, do this at the main entrance, and you'll see where it says Lewis Palmer High School inside the front entrance. It's because that was the original entrance. Then we added another one on the outside when we built Palmer Ridge. And so we owe safety and security to all of our schools. So the money that you see in the bond that says safety and security, that's to physically harden every other school in the district, and I believe the admin building as well. We owe also safety to all of our staff in the district. So that's what that money's for, is for physical buildings and structures. In the MLO, that's an ongoing cost of personnel. So that's going to run for 7 years. We did sunset it because that's something our community told us in earlier MLOs, that we don't like that, you know, MLOs going forever. Let's see how it works. Show us the data that money has been used wisely. Show us you're going to spend it wisely. And then maybe if you continue to need the funds, we'll talk in 7 years. So that's going to be straight for staff, training. There's going to be, like with K-9, we're going to look at some dogs and some other stuff. So it's more of that reoccurring cost.
Dennis.
When it comes to an opportunity to talk a little bit about why the 2 pieces, for me, one of the big parts that's included in the bond would be the entrances to our elementary schools. Lewis Palmer Elementary, Bear Creek, Palmer Lake, Kilmer has one, but it's small and not even used. And we have our secretaries who have a full-time job. I encourage anybody to become a secretary at any of our schools for 1 day. And besides asking them to do that, we're also asking them to be the security person for everybody that enters our school. That's not reasonable. That's just not reasonable. So in part of the bond issue, it would be to incorporate those, you know, if you walk into Palmer Ridge, you go through the 2 set of doors. That's what we need at our elementaries. Now, you can imagine from a cost perspective, Lewis Palmer Elementary, to be able to put that secretary in a position to be able to communicate with those people as they enter the first door, but we've still got a second door to, that we would allow them to go into, that's not a cheap fix, as people have alluded to. So a big piece of the bond, and the difference why they're both would, the big piece of the bond is the vestibule piece of it, and making sure that you know, we don't have a secretary looking through a phone while she's doing 6 other jobs at once, determining if that person should come in the building or not. And the other thing is, we don't want to rely, I don't think any of us would say in this day and age, and as our community grows, how hard would it be for any of us to stand outside an elementary and just walk in as somebody left? I don't want to take that risk any longer than we have to.
And that's not to say that our schools aren't hardened. We do have badge insecurity on every single one of our schools. You have to be buzzed in, and we're fortunate to have that. Not all the schools do have that sort of thing, and we do have a lot of other things in place, like Don, that we wouldn't happen to mention to you all, but do know that 24/7 we do think about security and keeping our kids safe.
Great, thank you. Karen and Cheryl, this is for both of you. You can tag team it. We continue to have great test scores, so what we're doing must work. Why do we need more money?
Well, I can tell you that we do have great test scores, but testing isn't the only thing that's important. We have to address lots of needs for our students. We have a significant number of students that are beginning to look at alternative pathways after high school, not necessarily college. We need to strengthen our career and technical education so that kids have more opportunities and pathways in the future. We also need to make sure we have robust programs that are competitive with other schools. We want our kids to be fully prepared for the careers of the future. So science, technology, engineering, mathematics, we need to strengthen those programs and make sure that we have those pathways for our kids. While we can continue to provide a strong education because we have great educators, they are overwhelmed. When we talk about what we did during the recession to make sure that we could save some money, we went from a schedule at the high school that put a significant, that increased their class load and decreased the amount of time they had to prepare for classes. That put a significant load on our high school and middle school teachers, more so on our high school teachers. We also have increased class sizes because that's the only way we can keep up. So while one might say we're performing at a high level, I would say at what cost? At what cost to our incredible educators? At what cost to what we can't offer our students? And at what cost to the future of our students and their success? So test scores aren't the only thing. The future of our kids is really what matters.
Just to add on to that, we have a long history of excellence within this school district, and that hasn't been without community support along the way. And I can tell you, having been here, as I know Mr. Poff could as well, now looking at this budget for over 12 years, we are absolutely maxed out. Karen talked about the teachers. Dennis talked about our safety and security needs. We have the growth issue on top of all of that. We are at a crossroads now at this point for the school district in needing these seats for our kids and these safety and security improvements for our kids.
And I just want to, just real quick, you know, our teachers have really stepped up to the plate during all, we've asked them to do a lot more and they've done it. The thing that we're losing, one of the things, is when you think teachers have free time, it's really not free time. That's time that they interact with our kids. And that's one of the things that makes Lewis Palmer different than a lot of other school districts, is our teachers really care about our kids. And when we ask them to do these loads that we've done for many years, that directly takes away their opportunity to interact with the students. I know for me, it was a teacher when I was a child that took time with me that changed my entire life. I have no idea where I would be right now if it wasn't for Mr. Wilson, a math teacher who I didn't even really like that much, but he impacted my life and got me into computer science. I have no idea where I would be. It's that interaction with our teachers that make the difference. Right now, we've asked them to do so much, and if this bond, I'm going to go back to the bond, if this bond doesn't pass, the bottom line is our teachers are going to be asked to, classroom sizes are most likely going to go up, and teachers will have less opportunity to interact with our kids, which I think is the big difference when it comes to District 38.
Thank you. This is going to be the last question because I want to be respectful of our time. Once again, we did not ask all the questions. Those will be rolled over on the 11th. And this is for both Tiffany and Mark, and we'll have Tiffany, you start. What will happen if the MLO doesn't pass? Will this be tried again? And if so, when?
So the MLO, what if the MLO doesn't pass? D38 does what it does well, and we will continue to be an excellent school district. We will continue to serve our students the best we can, and we will continue to have great teachers and great staff. And Dennis will continue to do what he can with what he can. But this MLO and this bond, I think Mark stated it best just now, that we have done, and Cheryl, you said it best too. We're at a crossroads here. So our students will continue, our attendance, our classroom sizes will continue to go up. We'll continue to be congested, but we will find ways, and it won't be ideal. And I don't mean to do a scare tactic, but honestly, at some point, you're maxed out. Something's got to give. And we're at a place where something's got to give. And that's all I mean.
That's okay. Thank you. Mark, you have.
No, this is good. Just to talk about just the MLO, because we've asked for MLOs before in the past, and they failed, to be quite honest with you. We've listened to our community. You learn through failures. I think Edison said it best, that every time you fail, you learn, and that's why we're only asking for 7 years, is data-driven decisions. We want to prove to our community that we're spending the money wisely. So if we don't, in 7 years, you can just shut it down. So I think we've made a very conservative request to our community. It's $1 million. We're not asking for a lot of money. I think when you talk about safety and security, think about how many personnel, how many people at 50, 60,000, or whatever their salaries are. It's going to be, we're going to have a community that is going to oversee how the money is spent. And I think we've listened to the community in asking them a very conservative request of just the funds we need for safety and security.
Thank you. Thank you to our panelists and to our community members who submitted questions and attended this evening. Are there any individuals here working with groups that are working regarding these two issues? If so, you can raise your hand. Thank you. You can speak with any of these individuals and get information off premises. Our next forum will be October 11th, and questions that didn't get asked tonight will be rolled over and they'll be submitted on that day. You can also see us on the District 38 YouTube channel. Election Day is November 6th. You can still email questions in for the October 11th at daac@lewispalmer.org. Thank you.
And a special thank you to DAC and CPA and all of our volunteers for helping this to happen tonight.
Thank you.